as Ryan was saying, some people are still having some trouble getting your AlgoKit installed on your local machine. Don't worry, we can still use Gitpod and you can follow along and everything will work just like it works on a local machine. So if you weren't here yesterday or you didn't use a Gitpod yesterday, in order to use a Gitpod, you head on over down to this Gitpod link here. Just click the link. It'll ask you to sign in. If you haven't already signed in, you can sign in using GitHub, and then it will go ahead and create you a workspace. So when Gitpod first opens up, what it's going to do is going to install AlgoKit. So that's what's happening here in this terminal. So we're going to wait for that to install, and then we can go ahead and get started learning about smart contracts on Algorand and how they work. Okay, so AlgoKit has been installed. And now what's happening is we're starting a local net, and this is basically spinning up a local instance of an Algorand network. In this case, in the Git pod, if you were to do AlgoKit local net start, so let me pop open the terminal and just show you what that looks like. If you're on your local machine, you just do a AlgoKit local net start. You should see something like this. If it's your first time starting it, it will take a little bit to run, but eventually you'll have a local network running. And so this local network is what we'll be using to initially deploy our network. And then later we'll be showing you what deployment to a testnet, for example, looks like using Dapflow. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal, and I'm just going to go and get started with AlgoKit. So what I'm first going to do, I'm going to make a directory called section2, spell it right. And then I'm going to go into section2. So I'm in this session2 folder here. You could also make it over here in the UI if you want to, but go into this session2 directory, and then we're going to run AlgoKit init. And what that's going to do is ask us which project template we want to do. Here we have 3 templates. Yesterday, Ryan showed Playground. Today, we're going to be using Starter. There's also a production template, but Starter is a little bit easier for those just getting started, like I'm sure a lot of people here are. And so that's what we're going to use. So we're going to hit enter on the Beaker starter template. You can name it whatever you like. I'm going to name this intro to smart contracts. I'm going to go ahead and enter my name, my email, and then it'll go through all these options and ask me if I want to use VS Code, what linter I want to use, formatter, stuff like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and click yes to all the defaults. If you have different preferences, that's totally fine. The core code of what we're going to be doing is the exact same. So we're going to go ahead, and once we accept all the defaults or select which options we want, it's going to set up our project, and then it's going to open up a VS Code window. Now on Gitpod, that's going to ask permission. If you're doing it on your local network, it'll automatically open for you. So here, you can now see that we've opened up our repository, exit out all these warnings, and now we are ready to go. So first thing we're going to do is we could take a look at our app.py. Here we're using Beaker and PyTeal. So just a refresher for Algorand development, we have 3 core languages. So at the lowest level is Teal, and this is like a machine language that's interpreted by the Algorand virtual machine. And it's a very low level language that isn't super ergonomic to work with. Can be really confusing. It can be hard to follow and annoying to write, especially when you get more complex apps. So on top of Teal, we have this Python library called PyTeal, and PyTeal is a Python library for writing on-chain logic in Python. So what this basically allows us to do is write certain expressions that then translate into on-chain logic in Teal. And now sitting on top of PyTeal, we also have Beaker. And Beaker is a framework that helps us organize and add some abstraction on top of PyTeal to make it even easier to write smart contracts on Algorand. So today we're going to be using Beaker to organize our PyTeal, which will eventually compile down into teal. And we'll be showing you what all these things look like in just a second. But for starters, this is just our basic Beaker application. As the name suggests, it's called Hello World. You have a hello method that takes in a name, and then it's going to return the concatenation of hello and our name. And we're going into what each of these specific things are actually doing a bit later, but just give you the high level overview first. And then we have a delete method that will let us delete the contract if we wanted to. And so now if we take a look at this deploy script, so this is a script that deploys our network. Well, first it will compile our application, and then it will deploy it to our local network. Earlier, we did a AlgoKit local net start. And what we're doing here, as you can see here, we have this line app client.create. What this is doing is creating an application on our local network. So what this script is doing is basically creating that application and then calling the hello method saying our name is Beaker. And again, we'll be going over what each of these lines of code are doing, just giving you a high level overview of what the architecture of our directory here looks like. So now if I wanted to run it, I could just directly do a Python and then call app.py deploy. Boy, AlgoKit also ships with VS Code integration out of the box. So we can come down here to our run and debug tab. And if I do the drop down, I see I have two options, build and deploy. So first I'm going to show you a build. And what this is going to do, it's going to call our app.py, as you can see here. And if we go back to our files, we now have artifacts, and this generated our teal, which is our low level source that will eventually send to the network. And then we also have some other artifacts that we touched on yesterday. So we have our contract JSON, which contains all of our ABI information, which makes it easier to interact with our contract in our source code. And then we have our application JSON, which contains the contract and additional information like the approval and clear programs pre-compiled, information about our state, so on and so forth. So that's the general layout of this. And if I wanted to go ahead and show you, so that's building, if we go ahead and click build and deploy, what this is going to do is going to call the deploy.py file. And we can see if we go back to deploy.py, we eventually call hello with the name Beaker, and it returned hello Beaker. So great. Well, now we know the general architecture of this. We have one app or one Python file that has our contract source code, and then one Python file that has the code for deploying app on our local network and then calling it.